Hi, this is Dr. Kimberley Linert, author of Visualizing Happiness in Every Area of Your Life and hosted this podcast, Incredible Life Creator. And today I have Matt Kendall with me, all the way from the UK. Thank you, Matt, for being with us today.
Well, thank you very much. No, it's a pleasure.
Yes. And so Matt is an integrative eye movement therapy specialist. And instead of trying to get into that right now, I'm going to let you explain it, Matt, in your story. So tell us about you, like how you started out, because I know you didn't start out doing that, how you started
That's
out,
correct.
and how you got to be doing what you're doing now.
So, a long, long time ago, when I was leaving university, as part of my university degree, I did like a technical degree and I was building websites and stuff like that. And I was also very interested in stand-up comedy and live music. So I thought I will put on a night, I'll create a website around it and I'll take pictures and, you know, I like organizing things. I was always the one that organized the holidays with our friends, things like that. And so I organised this night and it went really well. And I enjoyed doing it. And what I've always been good at is running businesses, only small businesses, but creating systems that allow you to run a business. I got very much into the myth when I was very young and creating business systems, 4-hour work week, a bit, not so much, but more to do with the myth. And so I thought, right, okay, people like coming to live music, bands like playing to people. How can this kind of all work out? And so I started running regular band nights in Manchester. It's called New Manchester Bands because it was a very creative name. And so I started just working out how to sort of keep everybody happy in a business. And I used to hire students to do flyering and door staff and so I was only quite young. I was only like 22, 23, and I had like I was running a team
Mhm.
of my own people at these band nights, in which I was, technical staff, and it was like they were quite big events. I was doing Battle of the Bands, and
Mhm.
although I was never that into the live music myself, and I think that was kind of quite important. I was much more, and I wasn't into the money of it. I was more into the organisation of
Mhm.
it. So I was running band nights. And I was also working at a telecoms company. It's called British Telecom over here. And I was running my company from there, which apparently is called gross misconduct, and which is fair enough. And so they asked me to leave. They actually took me out by security anyway. So I had to leave there. And because I was only there for a couple of years once I'd left you, it's only about 23, 24.
Mhm.
And I've been running loads and loads of band nights, and I was also running club nights. So I was getting used to sort of running businesses, making them profitable. And I was really interested in hypnosis. I'd seen a lot of it on TV. I'd seen a lot of the big people over here. We have like Darren Brown, we have Paul McKenna, and they, in the early noughties, that's right, I suppose. Hypnosis was quite frequent on TV in the UK, not so much now. And I went to a networking event because I was running so many band nights that I started running a print and design studio, as it happens. And so I had two designers working for me. It was all online. It was very ahead of its time. And I went to a networking event and I met a guy who was a hypnotist. And he says, "Do you want to be hypnotist for £10?" And I said, "Of course I do." No, because it probably wouldn't have worked if he said free, because that'd have been odd. But he said, "Do you want to be hypnotized for £10?" And I said, "Yeah, of course." So I went to his office on a different day and he hypnotized me. And it wasn't great. It was all kind of free association stuff, which is I'm not a real fan of. And I went for a few sessions. And I just enjoyed the process of being hypnotized. And he found the root cause, so he said, and he worked on it, and that was fine. Because obviously, the £10 trial session led to 6 paying sessions
Mhm.
because he was a good businessman. And at the end of it, he said, "Listen, go and learn how to be a hypnotherapist." I went, "Oh, okay." So, I had some free time. So I went and read every book. I did every course. I learned all about NLP. And I realized I really liked a lot of the techniques and the protocols and how it works. I disliked a lot of it, and I disliked most of the people in the industry. I took an instant dislike to people like Tony Robbins and just that kind of pumping stuff up to, you know, I won't swear on this podcast, but just creating monsters sometimes, just by creating massive, big, happy feelings and just shaking my hand really hard. That kind of
Mhm.
crowd. And that crowd is now the crypto crowd kind of thing. And so, but I did really enjoy some of the people like Cal Banyan. I really liked doing the 5 and 7 path system. Tom Silver, who I interviewed recently, I really liked his emotional replacement techniques. And I was learning these techniques online. This is when I was buying DVDs, and
Mhm.
then Essential Skills with Tom Vizzini and Kim McFarland. I did all their stuff as well, and I started working with a lot of guys. And I was running a very successful clinic in Manchester, it was beneath a gym. It was a really nice spa, and I was doing that for some time, and I was learning more and more about marketing as I was sort of going on. And I wanted to move down to London. My sister lived in London. Where I was living, the flatmate who I was living with, a lot of our friends had moved away from the area. He was in a quite committed relationship, quite a serious job, and he didn't want to go out and do stuff anymore, and I did. And I just thought, "Do you know what? I'm just going to move." So I moved down to London. And very soon after I moved there, I knew this guy who lived in Brighton. He says, "Why don't you come down? We'll do some therapy and stuff like that." So that's fine. And I went down and he said to me, "Do you want to come to this thing about moving your eyes and stuff?" And I went, "Yeah,
Mhm.
of course I do. That sounds great." So I went along to a proper little holistic place. There's dream catchers and little pebbles and that kind of vibe. And I met a guy called Andrew Austin, and I went in, and he said to me, "Do you have a memory, a negative memory, which just sticks out that you can think about?" I went, "Yes, of course." So he goes, "Hold that memory in mind." He put some fingers up in front of my face and started to move my eyes in this weird way. And he said to me, "When you think about that memory now, what's it like?" And I went, "Oh." And it was like discovering a new color or something. It's a very strange experience because I knew in that instance that my life, my way of working was going to radically change. Because it was like, in films, when you time travel back through time, all the stuff goes, like,
Mhm.
that was kind of happened when I was holding on to this memory. And what happens in this memory is that they're actually doing maybe not clinical trials, but they're doing research studies at the moment at the University of Stuttgart on IEMT. There's a couple of theories. There's bilateral stimulation, which is one theory, or there's reprocessing. Sorry, yeah, it's sort of like a reprocessing kind of way of doing it, which is a more neurological approach. Because bilateral stimulation is a bit more pseudosciency from my kind of understanding, and this is more to do with consolidation and reconsolidation through the limbic system. Basically, you take a traumatic memory, you move somebody's eyes, it brings them out of the memory so they're looking at it with no emotional attachment. That's basically what it is. There's a lot more around that, but that basic, the bare bones, that's kind of what it does. And so I went back because I was already working in London. I was working for some pretty big companies, and I was working at like some coaching companies, and I started trying this technique out. And the results I was getting straight away were just brilliant, really, really good. Because not only does it work on if somebody has negative memories, it also works on the imprints of those memories. And there's lots of different terms for imprints, that people sort of use in different sort of therapies. The roots of the problem, the initial sensitizing event, whatever people want to call it. And so if somebody has anxiety, not necessarily anxiety, because that's an overstimulation of the nervous system, but fears and phobias and other kind of reactions, disproportionate reactions to stimulus, you can regress that person very quickly and easily to these imprints or imprints, get them to reprocess these imprints and basically completely change somebody's attitude towards stuff without trying to change their attitude.
Mhm.
And so when I went to learn about this, first of all, it didn't have a name. It was eye movement stuff. And then it was put into an actual training, to a 2-day training. And I was asked if I wanted to go do a training. So I went on. So I went down, did these 2 days training and loved it. I thought the manual was very complicated and it was a bit all over the shop. And so I had to sort of rewrite it and rethink, not rewrite it, but restructure it. And there's some really good tools and techniques in there. And so I started using this a lot with people. And I started to actually give demonstrations, public talks, and because whilst I was living in London, I also started something called Interesting Talks, which was a meetup group before Meetup kind of, I think it's still around in some incarnation, but it's pretty much dead. And so I was running like 2 or 3 events a week in central London. We had hypnotists, therapists, all different kinds of people coming and giving talks, the weird and wonderful. And I was also giving talks all over the UK with different companies. The pandemic sorted that out for me. And after a few years, I was asked if I wanted to become a trainer. Now, I was already running my own workshops for different things, anxiety mainly. And so I went along and did this training so I could actually train my own practitioners. And that was in 2013. And since 2013, I've trained hundreds of people, everybody from people without any kind of experience in therapy, people who've had the therapy and want to learn more, loads of psychologists, doctors, counselors, hypnotherapists, RTTers, which is rapid transformational therapy, Marissa Peer's work, NLPers, CBTers, because IEMT is very different to its neighbor, which is EMDR, which is the well-known form of eye movement therapy. And people always ask me, what's the difference or what's the similarity between the two? And I actually did an hour-long interview with an EMDR therapist, and we went through the whole model of each to give a, because it's not a quick answer. It's like, it's pizza like bread. Well, it is like bread, isn't it? Because they both use flour. But yeah, they're very kind of different if you see what I mean. So they are sort of very different things in that way. And so IEMT is a set of like 8 different tools, and it can be used as a process you go from 1 through to 8, or you just use the bit that you need. And so it works really well with everything else. It can actually boost what you're already doing. So if you are a hypnotherapist, but your client is anxious about being hypnotized, you can work with them using IEMT. If you're a counselor and when your client if they're getting too traumatized or re-traumatized talking about the thing, excuse me, you can use IEMT on those traumatic memories, and then afterwards the client can actually talk about the thing without becoming emotional. Because I think talking therapy is great, but not just if you're going to re-traumatize people by re-talking about the incident or whatever it might be, which is obviously quite a common thing in standard counseling. So I've been training people. I was in person in London, and then the pandemic hit, and so I moved it online. And so I did my last training at the end of the middle of March to 2020. Must have been 4 years ago. And since then, I do a training every month online. I usually train about sort of between 10 and 12 people at a time. I do see private clients, but I made a decision. I was like, okay, I can make a nice living doing therapy online, working one-to-one with people and affect a few hundred people a year, or I can really sort of focus on the training aspect, train a few hundred people a year and affect thousands upon thousands of people. So I really focus on the training. Sorry, I think it moves out. And so I really focused on the training itself. And I also provide a very strong aftercare package. And so I have WhatsApp groups, I've got Facebook groups, I do a monthly coaching call for all the people who come through the training. And it's a really great community because it's not like a really competitive community because there's enough work for everybody. Of course, most people work online, so there's more than enough work if you put the hours in, I suppose. And so So I'm in a very fortunate position where I get to, well, I work from home now. I get to work with people from all over the world. We have people literally from all over the world do the course, and they're raising not just the awareness of this amazing therapy, but using it with people. And I just love, so I do case studies with people. I did two people today because they have to write case studies, send them in, we go over them. And it's just how they've taken these techniques and then worked with their own clients and how they've helped these people. So I'm in a very kind of fortunate position like that now, and I just spend my time doing Facebook lives, supporting my practitioners and trainee practitioners, and basically just sort of doing things like this, just kind of raising. I don't like that term, raising awareness. It sounds like it's an illness. It's not. We're just trying to get more people involved in IEMT because it's such a great way of working, and it's pretty much content free. So you don't need to tell anybody what happened, because I used to work with a lot of guys. Mainly my private work, I work with guys and I train women. So on on a weekend of 12, there's usually one man, and that's it. Sometimes there's two, but it's generally just myself. No, just myself and one other. Sorry. So I train women because there's just more female therapists. That's all. And I work with more men because I don't advertise my work or anything like that. It's all sort of word of mouth. But men will often want to get help, but they don't want to talk about it. So IEMT is great for that because you don't need to actually open up. And I think a lot of people I know in America and other countries, going for therapy can often be like a badge of honor. I go to, I'm in therapy. Who's your therapist, kind of thing.
Mm.
In England, it is kind of changing, but it's still seen as quite a shameful thing that you have to go to therapy. It's used as an insult. You need to go, you need to go for therapy.
Mhm.
And so I didn't really mean to be a therapist, and I'm still not really a therapist, really. I'm a practitioner. I like to think of myself as an actual technical practitioner of something. So
Mhm.
I'm more like a dentist. I'm not as skilled or as well paid as a dentist, but when somebody comes to me, something's wrong, and it's my job to find it out and sort it out. I'm not there to give you a cosmetic makeover.
Mhm.
So I'm there to do like sort of remedial kind of work to find the problem. So to do this kind of work, you've got to get very comfortable with people's discomfort. And a massage therapist friend of mine said, remember, I'm not creating pain, I'm releasing it. Right. So, and a lot of people, the way that we work with people is you've got to sort of you've got to get them to confront things. They don't to tell you what it is, but you've got to work out what they're avoiding,
Mhm.
get them to face it so we can work on it. So it's not a problem anymore. And you don't need to have big, super happy, positive feelings, because a lot of people who want to feel great and powerful, especially men, have had like a lifetime of trauma, a very hard childhood, stuff like that. And so I know, some guys at the gym who are massive, massive guys, but they're little boys inside because they've stacked on so much stuff. And women can obviously act out in certain ways by promiscuity or even all this boss bitch kind of stuff all this kind of stuff I see all the time. And a lot of it's just kind of covering up these emotional scars. And people say that, you never get over stuff. And the thing is, no amount of therapy is going to change what's happened to you, but you can change how you feel about it and how it impacts on your life. And IEMT allows you to revisit past experiences from who you are now. A way to sort of think about this is that one of my favorite films of all time is Terminator 2. Now, when Terminator 2 came out, I was 13 or 14, and it was like nothing I'd ever seen before. They were using liquid metal graphics, and so it was
Mhm.
absolutely mind blowing. I watched it not that long ago, and do you know what? It looked bad. It looked tacky. And I was like, I can't believe I used to like this. It just looks so. I can literally do those effects on my phone.
Mhm.
I literally could. Now, when I think about Terminator 2, I think about me being 14 and watching it at the end of my bed with my friends. And trauma works in a similar kind of way. When we're exposed to traumatic memories, the way it's encoded, it's not necessarily given a timestamp, and it's put with a lot of um, sensory information. Now, recently I was talking to somebody who said that in a traumatic situation, your amygdala is working up to 400% capacity to take on a sensory rich memory. That's then passed to the hippocampus, but the hippocampus can't necessarily deal with this. And so it's kind of just left to one side. It's like if you have a librarian, and if you take in a book, that's the content, give it to the librarian, they will then take it and put it on the date stamp it and go put it on the shelf.
Mhm.
If you go in with 100 books and just spill it everywhere, the librarian now can't cope and it's just left around.
Mhm.
And so it's like pop-up windows on your computer. If you minimize loads of windows, your machine's running slowly. And at any time, those windows can be opened by little triggers and have pop-ups like intrusive thoughts. Well, IEMT goes and purposefully opens these windows and closes them properly.
Mhm.
Actually saves it properly to the hard drive. So it's not just in the RAM, it's actually in the hard drive. And when you start to do that, you can actually get much better clarity of thought and emotional control in the present. So you're not responding to things because when you go into a situation or a scenario, your brain does what we call a transderivational search. And that is, what do I know about this? And all of your memories come to you as like a lump. Now, all of your negative experiences are at the top. And the reason is your brain wants to keep you safe. So all of your bad associations with this thing come to the top so you don't make the same mistake twice. Now, what you learned when you were 6 and 7, great. It's not necessarily working for you when you're 35 and you're going to go speak to someone or do an interview or something. And so what tends to happen is a sense of cognitive dissonance. I want to go do that. You know logically you can, but then you have all this emotion which then stops you.
Mhm.
And what we tend to do is we tend to justify. So, say it's like a promotion you want to go for. You know you can do it. You know you're capable. You've got the training. And then you think about it and you get all this internal dialogue, all this anxiety, and all this emotion. And you say to yourself, well, actually, I don't want the extra hours. I don't want the extra responsibility. You're trying to make yourself feel better, but you know it's
Mhm.
actually frustration. If you don't deal with frustration properly in life, it can cause long-term depression. Just being frustrated about, how your life should be and how it is. And so what we can try to do, we can start to look at how you learn to begin to feel this way, minimize it down. So
Mhm.
when you want to go do something, you can do it without trying to have these super big, happy, positive feelings, all these affirmations or positive psychology. I'm sure that will work to some degree. But if you're having to do that every day or something, it's like if you've got a bike and you have to pump the tire up every day, there's a problem with the tire.
Mhm.
You need a new tire, all right? So IMT is a puncture repair kit, I suppose. Basically, it fixes the actual tire without you having to bump it up all the time. And you'll also learn to not go where you got that puncture again as well, because that's a thing. And so when you get emotional control, no, you can never control everything, but once you get emotional control, so you're not having disproportionate emotional responses to things, and you're clearing your mind of all your, not all of your, but a lot of your negative experiences, it just makes you okay. It doesn't make you feel great, but then you can go do the thing, and now you're laying down new foundational memory about that thing. So when you go do it again, you've now got those memories to call upon and not your negative ones instead. So you can never eliminate anxiety completely, and you shouldn't. Anxiety is there to help you focus and perform better. When it's fear and panic, that's not helping. So when people say they have anxiety, what they usually tend to mean is they have fear and panic about a situation. But having anxiety is healthy. as long as it's kind of controlled. Now, once you can control your anxiety or and your emotions, and then you can control your actions, because you're no longer making decisions based on emotion. You're making decisions based on the information and evidence in front of you, as opposed to your associations to the past. Your life goes on a different trajectory. So once you can control your thinking, be calmer, and make better decisions, and also you tend to make better goals from this position as well. We tend to want things that are the opposite to where we are. The single person wants to be married or have a harem. They want to be a player. Um, the poor person wants to be a millionaire or billionaire. The obese person wants to be skinny. Well, if you sort of look around why that is, or the real small guy wants to be strong and brave and everything like that. And so once you start to break this kind of stuff down with people, you get them to a better place, and then they can just make much healthier goals which they're going to be able to attain and do, and are made out of inspiration, not desperation. So I don't really do coaching. A lot of the people I work with do. When I work with a client, I only work with them for usually 2 to 3 sessions. But when somebody comes to me, there's usually something quite wrong, and they're in a position to deal with it, because IEMT is not care and support.
Mhm.
Okay. If you've lost a child or something like that, I'm not the person for you to come to. If you were in a bad car crash a couple of months ago and now you can't drive, I can help you. If you were violently assaulted a few years ago and it still affects you, I can help you. If you've got a fear of flight, all of these things I can help you with. If you need care and support and if you're in the problem itself. So say if you're in a domestic abusive relationship and you're in the relationship, don't come to me because I can't help you in that. You need maybe not even therapy at that point. You need other stuff. But so IEMT is a change work tool. It's not care and support.
Mhm.
And a lot of people have problems sort of with this, because I'm quite abrupt with people, and it's not because it's like if you go to the dentist, you can either talk or the dentist can do the work. You can't do both. And when I'm working with people, I can either have the client talk to me and tell me and justify their problem, or I can help them. I can't do both.
Mhm.
And so I make it very clear. And also I have all the case studies and testimonies. So I'm not there to be mean. I'm being cruel to be kind in a way. But it's not cruel, because people are used to therapy not working,
Mhm.
and they will go and do every different type of therapy. Like the obese person who has every diet book, or the broke person who has every book and ebook on crypto, those people. So, they have all the information, um, all the mindset with no skill set kind of thing. And so people are very used to therapy not working. So by the time they come to see me, sometimes they say I'm the last resort. If you can't help me, nobody can help me. But I wouldn't take a client on if I didn't think I could help them. I don't do that much client work anymore, like a few people a month, I suppose. Um, Once you work with them in the first session, something very odd happens. They're really eager to come to the second session,
Mhm.
because they've seen how much change they've made. And when you see them in the second session, they often look really different, because you've stopped all this anxiety and fear and stuff. They look younger. Their skin smoothed out. Their circulation changes. When you're in a state of fight or flight, um, your blood is mainly concentrated in your major muscle groups, and so it goes away from things like digestive and reproductive system, these kinds of things. And once your blood is kind of taken back into these other systems, people will often, anxious people will often have very bad digestion, because the blood's not in their stomach, and when they do eat, it all goes to their stomach, and they can almost pass out. So it has
Mhm.
lots of stuff like that. And obviously a lot of anxious people will have very low libido and stuff, just because that's not important if you're being chased by a lion. You've got other things to do. So um and so when you start to work with people like that, they become just much happier being them.
Mhm.
And they will also invest in themselves. Like, sometimes people will turn up on the first day, they'll be late. They will not have makeup done if they're a girl or a guy as well. Why not? The way we're living now, do whatever you want. But they'll tend to have sort of rubbishy clothes, not really make an effort. The second time they turn up, they will be turned out nicely. They'll be there early. They will
Mhm.
be happy. They will have makeup on. They will have done their hair. They will be wearing new clothes because they suddenly are starting to really respect themselves and starting to enjoy themselves, so because if you've got a bad life and your future is going to be bad, what's the point of making any effort? If you realize that actually life is quite good, you tend to make much more of an effort in your own life, and you become much more, as I like to call it, main player, main character stuff. So you forget to be the main character. I've been learning this from the kids recently. Doing it for the plot is a main character thing, and I need to do some main character stuff, which I really do like. And that's what you help people to do. You put them back in sort of back in the driving seat of their life, and but it's not care and support. However, a lot of care and support people do work with us. I did an interview earlier today with a woman who works in hmm, there's a lot of mountains and trees and stuff, and she works with a lot of firefighters.
Mhm.
So she works with a lot of people who have been in the tree, the special branch. I mean, the people who do the forest fires, that those units, helping them to get over that kind of stuff. So she's actually active in the field in the firehouse, working with people, supporting that way. We have a lot of mental health nurses who work in the NHS, which is our health care service, and lots of people have been setting up their own private practice outside of the NHS so they can do the full amount of work with them because they can't do the eye movements in the NHS because it's not recognised by the NHS. EMDR is, but IEMT is not at the moment. And so we get a whole range of people learning these skills and bringing them into what they're already doing or setting up their own practice virtually online or getting offices or renting rooms. And we have people literally all over the world in every different kind of profession. We get a lot. So today we had a Bowen's therapy, which is, I don't know, it's like a physical kind of. It's not chiropractic, it's not massage, it's not, but it's in that ballpark.
Mhm.
Um, and I've had chiropractors and masseuses and all different kinds of body work, different kinds of dentists, to help with anxious patients, and a lot of counselors, a lot of NLPers, like say RTTers, and again, just people who are just interested because there's no prerequisites to do IEMT. To do EMDR, you've got to have a medical background, but
Mhm.
IEMT you don't. You can literally it's only a weekend.
Mhm.
And as you go through the weekend, obviously you get to experience loads of stuff yourself, or literally all the techniques. Because I believe that if you experience all the techniques, it makes you a better therapist because you'll be much more empathetic with your own clients. And
Okay.
so that's what
It means that
I
do
do.
it you can do it online too?
I do it online. Yeah, absolutely. I do it all online now.
Mhm.
So I am doing a live training for a children's therapy institute, I suppose. I don't know, for lack of a better word. So I'm going to go do that in London later this month. And so I'll be training 14 people who work with children. So I will adapt the training for it. And that's my first in-person one since the pandemic. So it'll
Mhm.
be quite fun to, if somebody's quite tricky, I can't just put them on mute or the waiting room. I've actually got to
Mhm.
deal with them. So it's going to be quite fun to do. So it's, yeah. So yeah. And so yeah, so that's what I do. And like I say, I really stick around afterwards to make sure people become good practitioners as well. So I do a lot of aftercare support to make sure, because about 90% of the people who come do my training come via referral. So I
Mhm.
want to make sure that you treat the people. So a lot of people, when you sometimes in the therapy world, when you go and do a training, once they've had your money and you've done the training, that's it. There's no kind of support or community. So I really didn't like that. And like I say, I like business systems. So I've made my course the best possible course it can be. I'm always learning and changing things all the time. But
Mhm.
one of the things I didn't like was there's barely any aftercare with these things. So I decided to make my aftercare the best.
Mhm.
And so I give up what WhatsApp groups, a Facebook group. I do Facebook lives nearly every day, and I do a monthly coaching call that everyone's invited. So we'll have like 50, 60 people, and then they're
Mhm.
all saved and create a catalog of help and stuff. So yeah, so it's a very weird thing that I'm kind of got into. I didn't really mean to.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, so that's what I do.
So, if people wanted to connect with you or take your courses or experience this, how do they connect with you?
I'm all over the internet. My main handle is IEMT practitioner. The website is iemtpractitionertraining.com. Also, I do go by IEMT Academy. That's iemtacademy.com. On Facebook, you can find me under, I think it's IEMT practitioner or Matthew Kendall. You can find me under Matthew Kendall. If you go to YouTube and type in IEMT, I've got hundreds and hundreds of videos, hundreds of hours, hundreds of videos. I'm not hard to find. I do try to make myself quite public in that way. And on LinkedIn, Matthew Kendall on LinkedIn. I think it's Matthew Kendall. I'm quite easy to find, but basically iemtpractitioner.com. And yeah, just type in my name, just Google my name, Matt Kendall IEMT or Matthew Kendall IEMT, and I'm across all platforms. I don't do much on Instagram, um, and I'm on that TikTok thing, but I don't know what it is. So I don't put anything on there. I can't work out really what that is, to be honest. It's so I don't do much stuff on there, but I'm on Facebook every day. So just learn IEMT is the Facebook page, and IEMT with Matt is the Facebook group.
All right. So now I have a personal question for you. What gives you the most happiness and fulfillment in your life at this point?
The What I enjoy the most is when I do a training, I'll have 12 people on the training. They then need to go off and work with at least two people to do 2 sessions, 2 to 3 sessions. They then fill that out and send it back to me. And reading through those, so knowing that I've helped somebody at the other side of the world without actually doing it, or almost like franchised it out, I suppose. But they followed. Now, I didn't create IMT, I'm just a trainer of it. But the way that I train it is in quite a particular way. And the fact that these people have now, especially those who haven't got any kind of training background, have been able to take this stuff and go off and get these amazing results with people.
Mhm.
So yeah, I just really enjoy that. And then obviously speaking with the therapists as well, the practitioners. But yeah, basically, so people taking the skills, going and using them, and then feeding that back and just seeing, because I'm always learning, I'm always interested to hear about how people are using it with different, like we have one woman who specializes in training dachshunds, ex-police woman. She trains dachshunds and works with the owners with their anxiety about dog ownership and stuff. So we have some very unique, yeah, some very, that's kind of quite a unique one was that. And so yeah, so it's reading what my practitioners and my trainees have gone on and actually achieved. Um, and I do interviews with lots of my practitioners as well. So yeah, basically it's about how they've taken these tools and techniques and used them and the results which they have then generated.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast today and for sharing this, relatively new technology to a lot of
Yeah.
people.
Yeah, it is new. Like I say, EMDR is a much more well-known and recognized version of this. And it is similar because they both use eye movements to create change, but it's also very different as well. So if anybody has any questions about this, I'm very open to chatting, having questions, being interviewed, whatever it might be. Like I say, I'm very easy to find. I say Matt Kendall or Matthew Kendall, IEMT. Just Google that, you'll find me. I'm all over Google Business. I'm everywhere really. So
Beautiful. Well, I have one last question before we complete. What is your best advice on living an incredible, amazing life?
all right, okay. This might sound a bit boring. However, I do believe in having systems to run your life. Um, I'm currently reading Atomic Habits at the moment, actually. James Weaverly. Is it Weaverly? Um, and I'm just sort of just agreeing with the book. Really. I'm not really learning too much. I'm just kind of agreeing. Go, yeah, no, of course it is. So I don't understand people who don't own a calendar of any kind. I don't. I I don't understand. And a lot of people want to be spontaneous and free in life. I can be the most spontaneous and free because I know if I'm not here, bills get paid, things get mailed out, the electricity doesn't start, because I'm a very responsible person in
Uh-huh.
that way. And because I'm really responsible, I know when everything needs to be done and when. It gives me true freedom. So I'm not, people think that if you have loads of routines and stuff, it's really OCD or you're just bound to this. But it actually gives you freedom, having your own tools and techniques and structures. So I live on Google Calendars. My whole life is on Google Calendars, and everything is color coordinated. So I used to have 5 different calendars. Now I only have one. I just use different colors
Mhm.
because it integrates with different things. So I needed it to, with my booking systems and so anyway. So, but I kept the colors the same. So everything that's red is really important stuff. So that's like medical appointments and paying tax, that kind of stuff. Everything in blue is work. Everything in green is health stuff. So exercise, eating, and self-care. Everything in yellow is fun,
Mhm.
and everything in it's just off red is kind of peach is other kind of important stuff, but not as important as red.
Sure.
But I have them because some stuff needs to be done every day. Some stuff needs to be done once a week, once a year, once a month, all different kind of. So I know when every bill is due and how much it's going to be, pretty much. I
Mhm.
know when the bins go out, what days they go out, what time they have to be put out. Um, and my business runs exactly the same way. I know when my bills are due for my servers, things like this. And when you're running a business, you've got to plan your marketing.
Mhm.
A lot of people just do marketing where they don't have any clients. And if you do that, you'll have a feast and famine situation because
Mhm.
you'll generate lots of work, but then you won't have time for marketing. Then you can't do so feast and famine. So what, my best advice is to get organized because when you've got so much information in your head, it drives you crazy. Once you start to bring what's in your head out onto paper, or more specifically into Excel,
Mhm.
you can actually start to um, work on it. So I use uh, a thing called Obibase, which I don't even know if it's supported anymore, but it's like a free database creating system. And I use all my tasks are in there. So you can use anything. You can use Google, I think you can use Google Tasks or just Google Calendar and have tasks or there's lots of different kind of task kind of software. But I will have my week set out. And when I work with people, and I learned this when I work with people with low self-esteem, I'll say to them, or they know I want to have more confidence and have more fun in life. We'll
Mhm.
go through their week, and what it is, they're not doing anything fun.
Mhm.
They're just not. They're just not doing anything fun. And you say, oh, well, something you really care about. Oh, I love swimming.
Mhm.
And when's the last time you went? Oh, 2 years ago. And so they're not doing anything fun. And so it's really, really important to plan to have fun.
Mhm.
I don't like organized fun. I don't like Christmas parties, but I do
Mhm.
believe you should plan things. You should be as passionate as planning your fun things as you are your taxes. And it's about having that right balance. And I can have a visual look at my calendar and see if this isn't all right. There's not enough self-care, there's not enough work, there's not enough fun stuff. So
Mhm.
Google Calendars, I think, is the best thing. I use it all, I have it open all day, every day. And again, you can just set things to repeat on a weekly, monthly. You get every day, you get your itinerary of things that you need to do. But
Mhm.
it allows me to be creative and think freely because I'm not worried about when's this bill due or when's that, because it's all in my system. It's all
Mhm.
in my system. So, my best advice is to plan to have fun, but plan your life. spend some time on the boring stuff, doing the jobs that you don't want to do to get things sorted out. And once you get into it, it actually becomes really interesting. If you run your life like a business, there's different inputs, there's different outputs, there's different processes. You start to get like an eagle-eye view on your life, and it's much easier to make goals. It's much easier. Life just becomes easier once you're really, really organized. It just does. So
Mhm.
I just love planning stuff. So, I'm going to London next month, so I've already got this plan. I'm having an operation at some point, so I can't plan as much as I want at the moment, which has been very frustrating.
Mhm.
But yeah, I've always got stuff in the diary. I'm always planning ahead. So I'm always know what I'm going to be doing next week, next month. And again, I know that all the boring stuff of when the bills need to be paid and when I need to send meter readings and all that kind of stuff, 'cause it's all in my diary, so I don't need to worry about it. It's kind of set and forget. So once you get that side of stuff and you become responsible, um, and you plan to have fun, that's when you begin to live a really interesting life.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Matt.
You are very welcome.
Yep. And we'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you.